Alan May will be analyzing the game on Capitals television tonight, and he joins us from his home today to talk some NHL. G'day, sir. How you doing, Alan?
Doing great. Good to be back with you. I'm excited for another hockey season to get rolling here.
Aren't we all? You speak for a lot of fellas and gals, hockey fans, Alan. And look, I'm going to jump right into the deep end here before we analyze anything else. I'm looking at Ovi's goal total, 730. Wayne, of course, 894. And we can't talk Washington Capitals without talking the goal chase and Alex Ovechkin. I don't think I've had you on since last season. Did Ovi have a little bit of an off year? You know, how's this pursuit going?
Well, I thought he was going well, and then all of a sudden he was hobbled by, I think it was a groin injury, and he just wasn't quite the same. And he started having to miss games, something he's never really done throughout his career. He's been one of the toughest all-time players when it comes to that style of hockey, how ferocious he's played the game. And, you know, last year I just thought the way the power play was going, it wasn't quite right. And you know, players started getting injured all at the same time. And I think it really slowed his pursuit down. You know, he still ended up with, I think, 24 goals in a 56-game season. He didn't play that many. But at the same time, last year, you could say it was a little bit off for the entire team because they had the COVID suspensions. They had, you know, the things that they dealt with there. They had some of the injuries. They had so many different players miss in the last 2 weeks of the season. But I would think going into this season, he looks like he's in incredible shape. It's kind of weird right now. He looks like he enjoys practicing in the training camp process. He's front and center in front of the coach in every drill when the coach is on the whiteboard. And I've never seen that before. And he seems like he's totally engaged in taking this thing totally serious. And I think as long as he stays healthy, he will break that record within the duration of this 5-year contract that he's about to start.
Wow. Bold prediction by Alan May. And by the way, there was a lot of big-name free agents on the board, Alan, this offseason. Ryan Getzlaf at the top, and Ovi was another. But I just thought, and in both cases, they ended up staying with their team. Did you ever think there was a chance that Ovi would look around?
Never, ever. You know, he's so ingrained in the community, too. You know, he's got, you know, the off-ice friends with his family. You know, that's a lot to take into consideration. He's done a great job of raising his 2 sons there. He's got an excellent wife. His home situation is about as good as it gets. And I just think, you know, with that, it was a matter of time. And probably the Capitals wish that they could have brought in Nick Backstrom, you know, during a COVID contract because he was signed to his new contract before COVID, and they could have had him take a lot less, which meant I thought Ovechkin would have been perfect to sign an $8.88 million across the board for you know, the next 5 or 6 seasons. But he took less than he originally wanted. But he also knew by taking the 9.5 that it also gave him, the team, a chance to put better players around him and not have a weak roster. Because when you do have a weak roster, you look at the Edmonton Oilers, how easy it was to just focus on McDavid and Draisaitl in crunch times. And, you know, that's a tall task, but it's a lot easier when the entire team can just focus on a couple of players. So they still have a strong-looking team. They didn't have to shed a lot of players to make his salary work. And I honestly think, I never thought this was possible before. I didn't expect him to be somewhat of a goal-scoring freak after the age of 30 and having, you know, 50-plus goal seasons. And he's continued to put it in there. I think that he is fired up after last season's totals and not feeling great. And I think the older players in the National Hockey League were very affected by the condensed schedule and the odd timing of the last 2 seasons.
From our technical producer, Ryan Baracco writes in, he says, love it every time Alan May comes on. And I agree with you, Rocco. You speak for a lot of people. You know, I'm looking at this Metropolitan Division, Alan, and it's hard to figure, other than Columbus and maybe New Jersey, who doesn't fit into the playoff picture. But really only 4 teams are. That's one of the toughest divisions in the National Hockey League. Every year it is.
Well, they say that every year, and you know you've got to think there's no Buffalo in this year. You know, that was 8 guaranteed wins, it seemed like, for everyone last year, and the Devils will kind of in that as well. But I look right now, I think a lot of people have the New York Rangers a little too inflated and where they're going to be in the standings. I don't think, when I look at the rosters, I'm going, how many guys should be in the lineup on a certain night? Not to say that every player in the lineup's not an NHL player, but some players, you can't have them all in the lineup at the same time. And I'll use the Edmonton Oilers again. I thought for too many years, they had too many guys. It should have been the 12th forward, but they were going from 7 down to 12 in the lineup, but they had all those guys that were 11, 12 types of forwards, and too many guys that were fifth and sixth defensemen in the lineup. I look at the New York Rangers. There's not a lot of proven players there yet. They signed some players and they make it sound like they've got the greatest goal scorers and team players ever. But I think right now they're somewhat overinflated. I really like the Philadelphia Flyers. Their defensemen, it's a strength again. You got Rasmus Ristolainen, who got the hell out of Buffalo, and lucky for him, because that's where your career goes to die. And then Ryan Ellis. You look at those two guys. Those are two top four defensemen that they've added to their mix. You add Keith Yandel. A little bit of tough news to start the season. Kevin Hayes out with a hernia surgery. But they're a really good-looking team in my book, and I think it'll get back to Vigneault and Terry and doing a really good job of getting these guys going. And they've got strength in net. So I think the Philadelphia Flyers may be the cream of the crop there with the Carolina Hurricanes. But although at the same time I look at Carolina, I'm not sure I like their defense as much as I've liked them in the past. And every one of those players could get back there, move the puck, and now they've got some reclamation projects back there. But the New York Islanders, we know they'll be in it because their structure is unlike no team in the National Hockey League. They have more defensive structure. Can they score enough goals? And I think it's going to be Washington and Pittsburgh battling it out, because Washington's starting the season probably without Nick Backstrom, who I'd assume goes on long-term IR until his hip is 100%. Then in Pittsburgh, you have Malkin and Crosby, and I look at their roster. I don't see enough depth with the other players right now to carry them through the start of the season. So, Washington wants to get off to a good start, and hopefully Pittsburgh is getting pummeled the first 10 games or so of the season.
Oh boy, Alan, I see why what a great job. Why you love it so much, right? This is so much fun. And so I was on a Rangers podcast the other day, the Broadway Hat podcast on Monday with the host Kyle Holland. It's a Rangers podcast. He's saying all the things you're just saying. Their prospects are the best. Their tough guys are the toughest. But he said that Ryan Reeves was signed to combat Tom Wilson. So two-part question. Is Tom Wilson misunderstood? I don't know how he could be. He just seems like a meathead, Alan. I mean, you know him obviously better than most, but I mean, the Caps seem to like him. NHL doesn't come down as hard on him as I think they should. But was the signing of Ryan Reeves for that specific reason, do you think, after what Wilson did to Panarin in that game last year at MSG?
Well, it should be illegal. I thought it was illegal to have a player on another team own another franchise. And apparently Tom Wilson owns the New York Rangers. He got everyone fired last year, got the coach, the general manager, the president all fired. Now they bring in Ryan Reeves, and, they're acting like Ryan's the second coming of Bob Probert and Dave Brown. In my opinion, Evander Kane nailed it right. Like, if you're going to let Ryan Reeves be a factor in a hockey game, I think the other team's going to get the victory all the time. And he's well-liked in Canada. He's Scott Oak's favorite guy to interview. And it seems like on the Hockey Night in Canada broadcast, he's the focal point. He's the superstar of the broadcast. I think he's a good player. I think he's legitimately tough. But I think there's been too much put into this. Will he ever score 20 goals like Tom Wilson has multiple times? Tom Wilson can skate just as fast as any player in the National Hockey League. He can put the puck in net. He's a wrecking crew with the body shot, with the big hits. And I think a lot of players in the National Hockey League, not just Tom Wilson, but in general, they need to do a better job of protecting themselves in high danger areas and on the boards. And, this goes not just for Tom Wilson. This goes for everyone. Players are still, too trusting. And I don't know if it's from the way we play youth hockey nowadays with no contact, and players have their heads down on the boards and not bracing for big hits. But Tom Wilson, people hate him. But I'll tell you what, every single team in the National Hockey League, you name it, the Toronto Maple Leafs would love to have this guy. He'd answer a lot of their problems, a lot of the top teams. He's a Stanley Cup champ. He was phenomenal in those playoffs. He can kill penalties. He can play different roles on the power play. And how many players that have played his aggressive style have been able to put up 20-plus goals in a season in the National Hockey League? Not very many. He goes out there. He brings it every game. Does he have to tone it down? I think he needs to keep his stick on the ice, on his body contact. And he's not going to get the suspensions. A couple of times, they always use that. If your stick's on the ice and you finish your hit, upper body's going to be a lot better position. But he does skate fast. And when they took all the hooking and holding out of the National Hockey League, they also increased the level of concussions, because you used to grab your player with the stick. It was kind of, you'd obstruct, you'd hold, you'd hook, you'd ride the player into the boards. We don't see that anymore because it's pretty much illegal. But that's how the game used to be played when I played. And we didn't have a lot of head injuries, and our sticks were down. And now you're kind of T-boning players on body contact, like you're setting up those open ice hits. And, Tom, I don't think he's had many controversial hits on the wall. It's been those straight on collisions. And he's just going to have to, steer clear of them. Once again, you keep your stick on the ice, his shoulders aren't going to be up in the facial area. And I know people, especially with the Twitter world now, the way social media works, people overreact. They say things they would never say in person to somebody unless they got about 20 drinks in them. And I would take Tom Wilson if I'm any general manager in the league. The Tampa Bay Lightning included would love to have Tom Wilson. And he's a great player. He does a lot of great things on the ice within a game, but it's those times that, they say crossing the line. I think we can say there's now with social media, there's a borderline hit every single hockey game because everyone's got an opinion and there's 17 cameras in the arena now. And, if you've got to explain your way out of every hit, you should probably going to get suspended.
I tell you what, man, we're out of time, but here's my personal invitation. Estevan Bruins are hosting the Centennial Cup in May, Alan. I'd love to do a hot stove with you down there in the Energy City. And so if you can come home, I know that the Pedersens will be happy to see you. And I know how much fun we'd have doing that. But listen, we got to run. Have a great season, my man. Keep in touch. And thanks for the time today.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'll tell you what, if the Caps aren't in the Stanley Cup playoffs at that time, I will definitely be back in Estevan and we'll do it.
That'd be awesome. Thanks, Alan. Alan May, Capitals analyst, joining us today from Frisco, Texas. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching the RP Show on YouTube. And don't forget, we're live daily on YouTube from noon to 2 Eastern. If you like what you see, hit subscribe. And if you like the program, check around for other segments of The Rod Pedersen Show here on YouTube.